What if I told you that making these small, simple changes could help you more effortlessly meet your weight loss goals? Hey everyone, I'm Abby Sharp. Welcome back to Abby's Kitchen. I get asked all the time about tips and tricks to lose weight. And while I don't identify as like a weight loss RD and therefore would never tell someone that they need to lose weight, I ultimately believe in body autonomy and meeting people where they are. And people, for various reasons, will want to seek weight loss. So my goal as a dietitian then is to help set people up with the safest and most evidence-based tools. And spoiler alert, it's not this. Before we jump in, just a quick reminder that not all of these hacks will work for everyone, and that is totally okay. Take what works and leave what doesn't. Also, don't take this video as a suggestion that you should try to lose weight. And a reminder that I've got some amazing evidence-based episodes about weight loss on my new podcast, Bite Back with Abby Sharp. So I would love if you guys would check that out because I am able to pack so much more juicy info and tips over on the pod. Okay, before we dive in here, let's take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, Element. So I first heard about Element from a lot of my sports dietitian colleagues who swear by it for its science-backed electrolyte balance of 1,000 milligrams sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams magnesium without having any added sugar, artificial colors, or fillers. Electrolytes play such a crucial role in the body, supporting everything from nerve signaling and hormone regulation to nutrient absorption and fluid balance. And Element has just been such a staple in my routine for years, helping me through basically everything from breastfeeding and intense summer tennis sessions to travel days and even the occasional hangover. Lately, it's been especially essential since one of my medications has been leaving me a little more dehydrated than usual, and my doctor actually recommended me increasing my electrolytes to help combat that. And I go through like different phases with my favorite flavor. I was on a real mango chili kick for like 2 years, but right now I'm kind of feeling the grapefruit. But with so many different delicious options, there's always something to mix it up. Right now, Element is giving my viewers a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single serving packets free with your order. And it's really just a perfect way to try all the flavors or share it with a fellow salty snack lover. Plus, Element offers a no questions asked refund policy if you don't love it. So to grab yours, head to drinkelement.com/AbbySharp, and this deal is only available through my link. So that's drinklmnt.com/AbbySharp. Okay, so one thing we have to get straight here, folks, is that in order to lose weight, you need to create a calorie deficit. Hard stop. That is just science, and we really can't get around that. But creating a calorie deficit doesn't mean that you need to be like weighing out your Cheerios or plugging everything into your MyFitnessPal. As we've discussed regularly on the channel, the most important factor in the weight loss equation is actually appetite management. So choosing foods that are inherently more satiating, like those rich in protein, fiber, and healthy fats, aka my hunger cushion combo, are really going to be key here. Those are the big picture considerations that we really all should be thinking about. But sometimes it's the little things that when combined help to move the needle without deprivation or really even a lot of thought. So let's go through some sneaky little evidence-based suggestions, starting with our food hacks. Hack number 1, aim to eat your largest meal before noon. This may seem like completely contrary to the patterns of like intermittent fasting enthusiasts, but research has shown that eating more of our calories earlier on in the day can help with appetite and cravings into the evening. This also checks out with studies showing that our bodies actually are more insulin sensitive in the morning, and research that having a high protein breakfast specifically can help to promote satiety throughout the rest of the day. So if your usual routine is to like skip breakfast and then have like a super light lunch only to then catch up on calories in the evening, maybe try shifting those meals earlier on in the day to see how it affects your food choices later on. Hack number 2, take advantage of the science of retrogradation.
It's just hella in retrograde.
So I've talked about this in a lot more detail in my video right here, but to recap, when we cool starch-rich carbohydrate-based foods like rice, pasta, and bread, those starch molecules basically get rearranged into a type of fiber called resistant starch that can support our gut health, reduce the glycemic load, and promote longer lasting satiety. In the context of weight loss, retrogradation may actually be a useful tool in the toolbox because it increases the fiber and decreases the glycemic index so that you stay fuller longer, which makes staying in a calorie deficit easier to do. And it also decreases the absorbable calories in rice, bread, and other starch-rich foods by as much as 10 to 15%. I know it sounds like witchcraft, but it's just science.
Yes, science!
Moving on, let's talk about the pistachio principle. So this was coined by Dr. James Painter, who essentially found that eating pistachios with the shells on prompted participants to eat less of them because the shells acted as a visual cue of how much they ate. Now, the same concept can also be extrapolated to other shelled nuts or seeds, or even packaged snacks when you have to unwrap or portion out each one. Having a visual cue like shells or wrappers, or even the end of a small portion of like chips in a bowl versus a bottomless bag that you've got your arm down, can really help promote mindful eating and allow you to check in with your hunger and fullness cues as you eat. And speaking of nuts, consider eating whole almonds over almond butter more often. Now, if you're thinking, well, almond butter is just almonds ground up and therefore would have the exact same amount of calories, let me explain why that's not necessarily true. So recent studies have shown that the fat in almonds is actually encapsulated by the cell wall, which is just hard for our bodies to break down. This means that as much as a third of the on-paper calories in almonds actually isn't even bioavailable to us. On the flip side, processing almonds by roasting them, chopping them, and then like blending them into a nut butter enhances their nutrient bioavailability, meaning our body can absorb far more calories in the ground up version versus the whole almond version. Now, folks, I'm not saying to ditch the nut butter altogether because it is still a super nutritious, satiating food, and we love nut butter over here. But as an oversimplified rule of thumb, the more whole a food is and the more work your body needs to do to break it down and digest it, the greater benefit for weight management specifically. Hack 5 is to put out a communal veggie tray before dinner. So researchers found that having a high fiber veggie preload can help with weight management, likely by increasing fullness hormones like GLP-1 and peptide YY, which then reduces total calories consumed at the actual meal. In one study, participants ate a small low-calorie salad before lunch and were then allowed to eat as much pasta as they wanted. And not surprisingly, the study found that participants who had these salads ended up consuming fewer calories from the main meal compared to the control group who went straight into the pasta. Putting out a platter of veggies while you're like making dinner is a really great way to encourage yourself and your kids to eat your nutritious vegetables while you're actually hungry for them, which then may help edge out some of the less nutritious, higher calorie foods to come. My last nutrition tip here is for my fellow smoothie lovers, and that is to make that smoothie thick AF.
Damn, boy, he's thick!
We know that an important trigger for satiety is the stretching of the vagus nerve, which sends a message to your brain to pump out satiety hormones like cholecystokinin, GLP-1, peptide YY, and ghrelin. The more voluminous the food or smoothie in this case, the greater effect on our fullness cues. And this is being supported by research where, regardless of the calorie composition of the smoothies, thicker smoothies made participants feel more full than thinner ones. So this is your sign to make those protein shakes like Wendy's Frosty style by adding in frozen banana, ice cubes, nut butter, and Greek yogurt. Now let's move on to the other lifestyle hacks that you might want to try to work into your day. Starting off, let's talk about NEAT. I've talked about NEAT before, but just to recap, it's all of the energy that you spend throughout the day outside of structured exercise. So I'm talking about like fidgeting, cleaning, walking, etc. You might be shocked to learn that most of us actually spend far more energy through NEAT than any kind of structured exercise we do in the gym.
Oh my God!
So while we're all obsessing over like how many calories your smartwatch says you burned in that spin class, research has actually shown that how much NEAT we do can play a massive role in one's body weight. And that's likely because while a lot of us may overcompensate for like intentional exercise by eating more or rewarding ourselves with like a treat, we don't do that with NEAT. It's just far more like covert and intuitive, and that's what you want when it comes to weight loss hacks. So some of my favorite ways to capitalize on NEAT are pacing while taking phone calls, taking meetings while out for a walk if your workplace allows for it, opting for the stairs over taking elevators, moving around in like a swivel chair, or getting a fidget toy to play with while on calls. It doesn't have to be a boot camp to count. And that is great news for me because I hate boot camp. Anyway, next, let's talk about turning down the temperature at night. The average adult needs at least 7 hours of sleep to feel rested, with a lot of women actually needing far more. But unfortunately, at least a third of adults are not meeting this threshold. And not only does this weigh on our mood and energy levels in the day, but getting that quality shut-eye also has tons of indirect effects on your weight. Research has shown consistently that less sleep is associated with higher BMIs, likely because inadequate shut-eye can mess with our hunger and satiety hormones, increase our blood sugars and appetite, and decrease our daily energy expenditure, all of which makes weight loss a real slog. There are a lot of important sleep hygiene hacks like staying consistent with our bedtime, avoiding blue light exposure before bed, and keeping your bed for sleeping only. But the temperature you sleep at is also super key. Research and also many experts suggest that the ideal sleeping temperature is probably between 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, since higher core temperature tends to interfere with restorative slow wave sleep and increases the likelihood of premature wake-ups. New, very preliminary research also suggests that sleeping in a cold room may increase something we call brown fat. Now, unlike most white storage fat, brown fat is metabolically active fat that actually burns calories in an effort to help maintain our core body temperature. It's most prevalent in babies because they need to stay warm, but adults do maintain at least some brown fat in our neck and shoulders. Now, I don't think I would expect the brown fat alone to actually kind of move the needle on the scale, but this study did find that the increase in brown fat helped to improve insulin sensitivity that lowered the men's risk for diabetes. And improved insulin sensitivity is a very important factor when it comes to weight management. So I will definitely be keeping my finger on the pulse for any follow-up studies in this area. Regardless, cool temperature is key for a good sleep. So open that window, bust out a fan, or like crank up the AC if you're in a really hot climate. The next hack is to expose yourself to bright natural light in the morning. This ties in with my points about sleep, but exposing yourself to sunlight first thing when you wake up helps to support your natural circadian rhythm, which in turn helps with sleep and optimal metabolic functioning for weight loss. And again, the research supports this, where we tend to see an association between getting in that morning light exposure and having a lower BMI. And independently from sleep, research has also shown that bright light exposure in the morning may actually help with fat loss, with one study showing that 3 weeks of 45-minute morning light exposure decreased appetite and caused subsequent fat loss. All the more reasons for a little morning walk. And speaking of walking, try to go for a quick little walk after a meal. You may have heard this from Glucose Goddess, but it is an evidence-based tip for reducing post-meal blood sugars and therefore improving overall insulin sensitivity. And this is critical for weight loss because of the bidirectional relationship between balanced blood sugars and our body fat. When insulin signaling is thrown off by insulin resistance, our muscles don't get the fuel that they need, which triggers our hunger hormones to tell us to eat more calories, which in turn increases fat gain, specifically to our midsection as visceral fat, which then further perpetuates the insulin resistance. It is messy, yes, but all you need to know is that anything that we can do to stabilize our blood sugars will have a beneficial effect on our weight. And that is a wrap. Remember that these hacks aren't meant to be prescriptions or things that you have to do in order to lose weight. And if one of these tips feels overly hard or restrictive, then it is not a good hack for you. As I mentioned at the top of this video, these aren't necessarily like the big picture pieces like eat more protein and fiber and reduce your consumption of like sugar-sweetened beverages. But for a lot of people, sustainable weight loss comes from a collection of small changes that are so simple and intuitive that they can actually be maintained. But if you're looking for more easy hacks like this, make sure you check out these videos and subscribe for more no BS nutrition content. And also please check out my new podcast, Bite Back. I'll see you next time on Abby's Kitchen. Bye.